This is Carrie Johnson with the Iowa Department of Management, and this is a brief webinar to familiarize county hospitals with the process to submit budget via the Department of Management's online system for fiscal year 22. I'm going to start out with some general budget information just to review property tax levies and the general timeline, and then we'll finish up with a review of the online system for fiscal 22. You will find that it's very similar to the fiscal 21 look in the application with very slight changes if you're familiar with how it worked last year. So the Department of Management's role is to provide the forms, including web-based forms, instructions, technical assistance, answer questions, that sort of thing for all local governments that submit budget to Department of Management. On our website, dom.iowa.gov/county-hospital-boards, you'll find a variety of pieces of information that may be helpful. Including the place to go to log in to the budget application, but also some other general pieces of information. One thing you'd find there is a list of historical documents related to tax rates for county hospital boards. So if you're interested in what other counties have levied in property tax, or any historical information regarding property tax, you can access these tax rate documents. They are found in Excel, so you can pull them off and use them as a data source or view them as you so see fit. And they do look a little bit like this. So you'd see each hospital listed and the different available rates to them, total rate, total dollars levied, and property tax dollars. So just an opportunity to review some general information about property tax levies in hospitals if you would so choose. To review the budget timelines, you're going to need to publish notice of a public hearing and proposed budget summary not less than 10, no more than 20 days prior to the date before the hearing. You hold your hearing. Your board would then adopt the budget following the public hearing. You need to certify or deliver your budget to the county auditor along with your publication information by March 15th. Department of Management compiles local government budgets and certifies final tax rates back to the county auditor by June 15th and also provides a consolidated tax rate list. County auditors prepare tax rates for the county treasurer by July 1, and the county treasurer prepares tax statements for property owners, and those taxes are due September 30th and March 30th of each year. And this is an overview of the different property tax levies available to hospitals, some of their information, rate restrictions, and the Iowa Code authorization. So this is just a quick overview of the different rates available to hospitals and where you might find additional information regarding those rates. So to start, everyone, of course, has a general fund levy for general operating purposes. Public hospitals, in that classification, there's 39 of those, and the general fund levy is for improvement, maintenance, and replacement of the hospital. The rate limits for counties with a population of under 225,000 is a rate limit of 27 cents. And for population over 225,000, the rate limit is $2.05. So that would be applicable to Polk County and Broadlawns. A revenue hospital, there's currently 4 of those, and it's for operation, maintenance, and funded depreciation of the hospital, and the rate limit is $1.08. And there is still one memorial hospital in the state that currently levies no property tax. FICA and IPERS, that is 2 different levies that are available to county hospitals. There is no rate limit. It is the amount necessary, and it is limited, of course, in purpose to paying the cost, the employer share of FICA and IPERS. The general fund levy must be at its maximum in order to utilize the FICA and IPERS levies. And you do not show expenditures in the FICA and IPERS funds. You actually transfer to the fund with the salary expenditures. So you transfer then to your general fund. Emergency levy, this is for an emergency that's not financed through the general fund. It is covered under Code of Iowa 24-6, and we're not talking about a natural disaster type emergency. We're talking more about a fiscal emergency. If someone would find themselves in a situation where the existing levies are not going to provide the revenue required in order to serve the needs of the county hospital. The levy limit for an emergency levy is 27 cents, and it does require approval of the state appeal board via a special form. So this form is completed. The county hospital would include the emergency levy in their budget that they file by March 15th. And then the state appeal board would review their form submission, probably even, maybe ask them some questions, that sort of thing, to determine whether or not to approve the actual use of that emergency levy at the end of the day for that budget year. Funds must be transferred from the emergency fund to be spent. So they would be transferred over into the general fund to actually be spent out. The state appeal board is a 3-member body that includes the Director of Department of Management, the Auditor of State, and Treasurer of State. Unemployment compensation levy is to pay the cost of unemployment benefits, and there's no rate limit. Again, it's the amount necessary and, of course, limited in purpose to unemployment claims or insurance. Ambulance levy is for purchasing, leasing, equipping, maintaining, and operating ambulance services, and it's only for when such services are not otherwise available. So there is no option other than this within the county. The rate limit is 27 cents per thousand. Tort liability insurance levy to pay the cost of tort liability judgments or insurance necessary and prudent for the operation of the hospital. And again, no rate limit. It is the amount necessary and limited in scope or purpose. Debt service levies for payment for qualified outstanding debt. There's a long-term debt schedule that must be completed. For debt service, there is no rate limit. It is the amount necessary and limited in purpose. And there's currently no hospitals utilizing this option. If this was something that was being considered, I would recommend that the hospital consult with a bond counsel to see if it would be an option. Many hospitals set aside funds from depreciation, etc., for building and improvements. Since all funds must be accounted for, and to distinguish these funds from restricted funds, there's a board-designated fund that could be established, and money is transferred from this fund to other funds by board resolution. The budget deadline for your fiscal 22 budgets is March 15th of 2021, and that is a Monday in this upcoming year. Budget protests. Citizens have a right to protest a local government budget, and that's covered under Code of Iowa 24-27. Persons affected by the budget, expenditure, or tax levy, or any item in the budget can appeal that budget by filing a petition with the county auditor. So they would gather signatures and file that with the county auditor. The deadline is March 25th. The number of signatures is determined based on a percentage of folks voting at the last governor's election. So they'd gather signatures, they'd file that with the county auditor. The county auditor would look at those signatures and make sure that they are in relation to, the correct number that's needed, and that it's completed and filled out, and then they would file that with the state appeal board. They would forward that on to the state appeal board, which I mentioned is that 3-member body that would then review the appeal and schedule a local hearing on the budget protest. They usually send hearing officers to attend that local hearing. At the hearing, the protesters, any other citizens, and the local government themselves would have an opportunity to review and give their perspective on the budget protest. The hearing panel would then gather all that information and take it back to the state appeal board, so the state appeal board can review and then render a final determination on the budget appeal. So either holding the budget as it is and making no changes, or suggesting specific changes to the budget itself. Budget amendments. Budget amendments are required for any increase in the total for any funds that you would have. The amendment must be effective before any of the expenditure amounts are exceeded. And again, this is in relation to amending your current year budget. Budget amendments require the same notice and hearing procedures as required for the adoption of the original budget. So essentially the same 10 and 20, not less than 10, no more than 20 days notice for the hearing date. You hold a public hearing on that amendment, close the public hearing, and then your board would act to approve the amendment or make any other changes. Budget amendments are also subject to protest, just like your original budget is. But keep in mind that an amendment of a budget after May 31st, which is properly protested, but there's not enough time to hold that local hearing by the state appeal board. If that were to be the case, and you can't get that all done by June 30th, then your amendment itself is void. So you can amend at any time during the current year. But if you get right up to the end of the year and you are after May 31st, you do your amendment, but someone protests, there's very likely not going to be enough time to actually hold a protest hearing and have the state appeal board render a decision before the end of the fiscal year. So therefore, your amendment would be void. The amendment form used to be a generic sort of miscellaneous form that was posted on our website, but now you can find the amendment form by logging into the same online system that you use to adopt your budget and selecting amend on that current year budget. So what it'll do, it doesn't open up the budget itself, but it generates a separate form that will allow you to complete and provide that amendment documentation to your current year budget. There's a webinar on the amendment process available on the hospital resources page. So just sort of keep in mind if you get to a point in the year and you find that you need to amend your budget, there is a little bit different process this year. So you could go and hop out there and view that quick webinar to familiarize yourself with the process. It should feel pretty familiar because it's within the same online budget system. It is a little bit different, obviously more simplified, but it should feel slightly familiar. But be sure to review the webinar. And there's also instructions within the online amendment form itself. So if you amend and go into that form, you'll see an instructions button and you can review that to walk you through that process. Regarding the online budget system, it is going to look very similar to the fiscal 21. The forms look basically the same. Your login access should transfer, but please let me know if someone needs access that doesn't have it or if someone needs to be removed from the system. If you use the tab key during data entry, it does move between cells, which you can enter data. You can also use the arrow key side to side and up and down. As you move within a page, a cell that you're in is highlighted and the row and column shows a green highlight. That just helps you kind of keep track of where you are in the form. Blue cells are cells that you can enter into. If you see white cells, those are either formulas or they're populating data from somewhere else and they cannot be edited. Ending fund balances are produced by subtracting the sum of all expenditures from the sum of beginning balances plus revenues. So when you're ready to actually work in the system, you go to the Department of Management website. Again, that dom.iowa.gov/county-hospital-boards. So that's sort of that county hospital resource page. You select the blue button titled Submit and Amend Budget. This will show you on the home screen a little bit of different information. So this is going to report for you which counties have filed valuations and which counties have not filed valuations, right? So you do need valuations to be filed by your county in order to have valuations populated in your budget forms and thereby be able to enter a tax rate. You can definitely go in there at any time after the system's open and enter your expenditure data and other revenues, but you do need valuations to be filed in order to calculate a tax rate in the budget. So this will just show you the status. You can see if your county has or has not filed valuations. When you go to log in, you're going to see the blue square, and that's the same Enterprise ANA account system that you've used in the past. And then on the home screen to work on your budgets, you're going to select Budgets. And this will display for you the fiscal 21 budget as well as the fiscal 22 budget. So the budget that you had completed, that's the current year budget, that's final. You actually can't change that budget itself, but you can select amend and generate an amendment form for your current year budget. And it will pull data from your fiscal 21 budget into that form. You can edit, and that basically allows you to go back into your budget and view the budget and print off anything you might want to print. But to actually get in and work on your 22 budget, you'll select Edit. Once you're inside the budget, you see the tabs across the top that represent your different funds and different pages that have to be completed. Data that's entered on the fund tabs and tax requests entered on the adopted budget summary tab populate over on your hearing page and on your the top of the adopted budget summary tab. So you kind of work your way through the tabs and all of the existing supplementary detail that you need to enter. Obviously, there may be several of these tabs. If you don't use those funds, you would have nothing to enter there. So again, you enter your revenue and expense detail on the supplementary detail sheets. And that data then will automatically total, and it's going to pull forward onto those summary pages for you. For each of those fund pages, you will see within that fund page tabs for revenue and expenditures. So you enter your revenue tab to enter all the revenue for that fund, expenditure tab to enter the expenditures. Once those 2020 valuations are filed by your county auditor, those valuation figures will populate into your adopted budget summary page. Until valuations are filed, or if your county auditor would go in and unfile the values because they need to make a correction or there's an adjustment that needs to be made. If any of those things are happening, you'll see a notice on the top of your budget forms that tells you that your data may change, that the valuations are in an unfiled status. So just be aware that if you see this notification here, the valuations may not be showing in your budget at all, or if they are showing, they may be changing because your county auditor is currently working in the system. Once your valuations are filed, then this notification will go away. And if you do see that notification and you're not sure what's going on, it's further into the year, valuations have been filed once, you can certainly follow up with your county auditor to see what might be the status of filing valuations. Once those valuations are filed, then as I mentioned, they'll populate within that adopted budget summary. You'll see them here. You would then enter your tax request by fund in these blue cells, and the system will then calculate for you the tax rates. If you want to include electronic or virtual information on your notice, there is a text box at the bottom of the public hearing tab to add some of that information. Your location field in the hearing notice is pretty big, so you may be able to include what you need to there. But if you're not sure, you have quite a bit of information to include, this box is available for you at the bottom of the public hearing tab. Once you're in the budget, of course, you can check errors at any time, save often, and you can print at any time. You can print the full budget at any time, but after you propose your budget for publication, you can also go back in and just print only the publication notice if that's all you might need. In Google, you can select your local printer, or you can select Save to PDF as your destination. So you can print a hard copy that way, or you can choose to generate a PDF and save it off to your machine. You can't publish your budget with errors. Of course, you have to check errors and clear any errors that might be showing before you can actually move forward with your budget. When you have no errors, you will see the green "Congratulations, no errors found," and you can proceed. And then that will allow you to then propose and publish your budget and obtain that public hearing notice. When you're ready to do so, you would select Propose Publish, and you get a screen to enter the time, date, and place for the hearing notice for your budget hearing. Again, your meeting location spot is pretty large now, but if it's not meeting your needs, then there is that separate additional piece of real estate to include any electronic meetings if that would be the case. Once you have that entered, you'd select Propose. And the system then generates that notice, again, that you can print or save to your system, or you can access it anytime later by going to Print and Publication Notice. Following the public hearing, your board can make any allowable revisions to the budget, which would be decreasing tax asking or decreasing expenditures. Those would be the allowable changes. They cannot ask for more tax or more expenditure authority than what they published in their newspaper. Or they may adopt the budget as it appears. So when that's ready, then you would go in and adopt. But if you needed to make changes, you could return to draft, which essentially just opens the budget up for errors and make your changes. You would then propose publish again. And then if it's a situation where they're simply decreasing tax asking or expenditures, you would enter back the original publication date and information. If for some reason you needed to republish, then of course you would update that publication information. And then at the point in which you're ready to adopt, you would select the adopt button. That would proceed with the budget as it's currently presented. So you enter your adoption date, the date that you adopted, not the date 3 days later when you come into the system to adopt it, but the date that was actually adopted by your board. So you may be entering a date in the past, and that's fine. Just type it in there. You select adopt. Following that process, you would deliver to your county auditor by March 15th the proof of publication for your budget notice, as well as the signed adopted budget and all of the supplementary pages from your budget. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Thank you.